Welcome back to the Hockey Talk podcast presented by Horizon Media. I'm Jacob Fraser and I'll be hosting this episode. Today I'm joined by Keanen Tregaskis and we're going to be recapping the Stanley Cup Final and taking a look at some of the recent moves that have happened around the NHL. But before we get into it, Keanen, how's it going?
Good. It's been 2 weeks since we recorded?
Yeah, we recorded just before game one of the Stanley Cup Final. So yeah, I guess it would be about 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's been good. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, let's just dive right into the Stanley Cup Final. Obviously, it wrapped up a couple days ago, a little bit earlier than we would have potentially wanted. I wanted to see a game 7 personally.
After the first two games, I was like, this is going 7.
Oh, for sure.
Like, without a doubt in my mind, this is going 7 and someone's going to die.
Well, and today would have been that game 7.
Yeah, it would have been.
I think we would have recorded today either way, but yeah, unfortunate that it didn't get to 7 games. But overall, what did you think of the series from either side?
Florida dominated. Like, after the first two games, the Edmonton had their one comeback, but it was all Florida pretty much. Connor McDavid said it himself, they were doing the same thing over and over again. They just played Florida's games. You played along the boards. You tried to forecheck against the best forechecking and back-checking team in the league instead of doing what got you to the finals. And I think that's where Edmonton not only lost, but lost in 6.
I've seen some people around, like just a bunch of random people on social media saying that the Oilers had a easier path to the final and weren't prepared to take on a team like the Florida Panthers that had the amount of depth, the goaltending that they had. What do you think about that?
I actually disagree. Like, Florida played a Tampa Bay team that has struggled last year and I wouldn't say has the greatest depth. You played Toronto, choke artist, and you killed his goaltender in game 1. You played Carolina in the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, they didn't have that much of a difficult run. Like, other than Tampa Bay, because we've seen them get it done before, but Tampa Bay played awful. Vasilevsky was awful. Kucherov, I think, had 1 point in the 5-game series. Don't quote me on that.
I think he had 3.
3, okay. That's still bad for your superstar player. I don't necessarily agree with that, but if you're going to say Edmonton's was easier, it wasn't that much easier, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess just like with how good the Florida Panthers are, you can't really prepare to take on a team like that. There's no other team like that in the NHL. No team in the NHL has Brad Marchand on their third line. Like that, it's insane depth, and they have the superstars as well. So, like, I don't know, how do you prepare for that? And I guess like, we're gonna get into where does Edmonton go from here. I guess we can get into it right now. Like, where do they go from here?
They're in such an awkward situation because you made it to back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals. You obviously don't need that much roster reconstruction. I don't think any other Eastern Conference team beats them in the finals, but obviously none of them were able to beat Florida anyway. You just need a goalie to just be able to elevate your performance, because the offense isn't going to put up 5 to 6 goals every single game. There needs to be 1 to 2 games around where the goaltender can carry you and elevate your game, and you expect that. Like, Bobrovsky had himself some amazing games, and you go, yeah, okay, we knew that was going to happen. Stuart Skinner, that took me a moment to think of his name, had his games in the earlier round, and you're like, oh, wow, he can do that? And then you saw the wheels completely fall off. Defensively wasn't great, but Stuart Skinner let in some bleeders and had some awful puck play as well. But that is also what you get out of a goal you pay $2.5 million.
Yeah, I think, like, you talk about Stuart Skinner and how he struggled at the start of the playoffs, found his game, and then started to struggle again in the Stanley Cup Final. I think anytime you have to switch goaltenders in the middle of a Stanley Cup Final when it's not injury related, you've kind of not given up the series, but you're
playing from behind.
Yeah, you're playing from way behind if you have to do that. So Yeah, I completely agree. I think the biggest need for them is a goaltender, but I also think that they need to beef up their defensive core. Like John
Yeah.
Klingberg wasn't he was solid in the Dallas series. We talked about that, but he wasn't that again
Mhm.
in the Florida series. And then you have guys like Troy Stetcher who realistically shouldn't be in your top 6 D core if you're a contending Stanley Cup team, right? So I think they've got a lot of moves to make, and having McDavid and Draisaitl, they've been kind of piggybacked a little bit
Mhm.
to the Stanley Cup final, and I don't know if you're going to be able to do that again.
Yeah, it's really hard to make 3 straight Stanley Cup Finals. It's hard to say that when you've just seen 2 Florida teams do it in the past 6 years as well,
Yeah.
though. But it's such a weird thing because 'cause they're so close with such a like, I don't even know how to describe this roster with how well they've played in the playoffs. Because on paper, it's not that great.
No.
Like, defensively and goaltending, I think their forward depth did not show up to what they can do. I think the forward depth is better than what we saw, but a little bit of that is because they played Florida's game. They just need to retool that defense. Look what Florida's defense did. Other than Aaron Ekblad falling every time Connor McDavid had the puck, Florida's defense was really good.
Yeah, I mean, Gustav Forsling, what a gem he's turned
Mhm.
out to be. I saw a post Brad Marchand said thank you to the
He,
Vancouver Canucks,
uh,
Chicago Blackhawks, Carolina Hurricanes for
he
Gustav
just
Forsling.
becomes more dislikable every day.
Yeah,
And he
seriously.
just feasts off of it. Like, I was sitting there like, yeah, okay, Florida won the cup. And then I see all that. I was like, fuck.
Yeah, I know. Couldn't be a worse guy to send to Florida and win a cup.
it's, he's the perfect player for Florida, too, though.
Yeah, oh, for sure. They're a bunch of rats, and he's the
He's the
definition of
Rat
that.
King.
Yeah. Yeah. While we're talking about the Edmonton Oilers here, I haven't seen it confirmed. We were talking about this before the show.
Mhm.
It's like a bit weird everywhere. Cap Wages has it, but Puckpedia doesn't. But Trent Frederick, rumored at least for now, to be extending a contract with the Edmonton Oilers, 8 years at $3.85 million. What do you make of that extension for the Oilers?
Here's the thing, and this is one of those extensions, it could go anyway, but right now it looks bad because he had an awful postseason. He got traded to Edmonton at the trade deadline. I don't remember if it was exactly on deadline day, whatever. He played one regular season game with the Oilers, so I do wonder how healthy he was in the playoffs. That could have impacted his play. Realistically, he is a good third liner. I just don't think 8 years is what you should be giving him. But this is Stan Bowman we are talking about, the man who said the Oilers don't need a goaltender. So I wouldn't be surprised if this contract is signed. He'll have a good couple years of, oh, this is a great contract. It's not going to be a great contract looking back on it just because of the term.
Yeah, I mean, Trent Frederick is 27 years old, so you're paying him this money until he's 35. And I agree with you. I think he's a good third line guy. Like in Boston, when he got traded to the Oilers, I thought that was a great pickup for them.
Yeah.
He was going to be a great depth piece to that roster. He's a good checking forward. Um, but yeah, I'm not in love with the term, and I think this handcuffs them a little bit. Like we're gonna get into Bouchard a little bit later, but right now I think they have like $8.5 million, maybe a little bit more in cap space. And by the sounds of it, Bouchard's wanting a $10+ million deal.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you're going to be able to manage that. You're obviously going to have to make some cap dumps, but
Well, Arvidsson has been rumored in trade,
Mhm.
but he has a full no movement clause.
Oh, does he? I didn't actually realize that.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at Puckpedia right now. No, like full no move clause.
Yeah.
Evander Kane, half the league is on there. I do think they move on from one of those two forwards because they also have Matthew Savoie, who can slide into that middle six, especially when you can put him on a Leon Draisaitl line, which will help him and develop even better because he'll be playing with a superstar player, and it's cheaper, much cheaper.
I would put Savoy on a line with Connor McDavid. That kid
Okay.
is one of the fastest players I've ever seen. I've seen him live many times. I've
Mhm.
played against him a few times. He's one of the fastest players I've ever seen in my life. I think he would fit right in with McDavid.
Yeah. Yeah, the Oilers, it's going to be about creating cap space, and we're getting closer to free agency, July 1st, but they need to create the cap space before they bring players in, or they're going to have the same problem they had last year. Holloway, Broberg gone, and that is not what you want as Edmonton. Imagine Philip Broberg, sorry, not Broberg, Dylan Holloway on this team. He scored mid-20s. Like,
Well, imagine Philip Broberg too.
yeah, even Philip Broberg, instead of they weren't matching what St. Louis gave him when he wasn't cracking their roster though. But if they actually locked down their young guys before bringing in some more veteran players, because you do need some youth,
Yeah,
because
well,
they're going to be faster, healthier, and more durable in 100+ games.
Well, 100%. But like you talk about Victor Arvidsson, they signed him last offseason. They're already looking at dumping him. Jeff Skinner played, what, 2 games in the Stanley Cup final? You gave
Yeah.
those guys a combined $6 million. There's Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg right there.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have a much bigger impact than Arvidsson and Skinner did for this team. Holloway is a great middle six forward already, and he's a young player. He's got the potential to be a top line guy. He would have been a perfect fit alongside either Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. And then Broberg would have added so much depth to their decor. You would have had a decor of Ekholm, Nurse, Bouchard, Wallman, and then what, Kulak and Broberg?
That's better than it is now.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
is just, you're getting rid of Stetcher, you're sliding in Broberg.
Well, and when Ekholm went down with that injury, you've got 3 guys that are left shot defensemen that you're content with having on an NHL lineup. So, yeah, Edmonton's going to have to make some big moves here. But we'll shift over to the Stanley Cup champions, and we'll talk a little bit about Sam Bennett. He wins the Conn Smythe. I got a text after he won the Conn Smythe saying that he just added $1 million to his next contract. Where do you think he ends up?
Unless he's getting a ridiculous like $9 million plus, he's staying in Florida. Like, why wouldn't he? Like,
Well,
you just went to
I
3
agree.
straight Stanley Cups. You played your heart out. You had your best postseason ever. Unless he really wants to chase the bag, because $9 million is way too much for a guy who, I think he scored 20 goals, had 50 points maybe this year.
Yeah, he's a 50-point guy.
And let's be honest, how many other teams is he playing for and he actually does get suspended? I'm just going to throw that out there. No. I do think he stays in Florida. I think Brad Marchand stays in Florida, but I think Ekblad is gone, because he was probably the weakest part of that decor, and they do need to create some cap space a little bit.
See, I really like Ekblad. I think he's a really solid second pairing guy, and I wouldn't mind having him on my top pairing. Like, you look at Florida's decor, they don't have, like, at least on paper, it doesn't look that good. Like, Seth Jones is solid, but I wouldn't want him on my top pairing.
Yeah.
Gustav Forsling, like we talked about, he's a great, legit top pairing defenseman. But then you got Mikola Kulikov. Well, Nate Schmidt is on an expiring deal here too. But yeah, you don't really have a ton there. I feel like they need to keep Ekblad.
Well, I'm looking at Puckpedia here. They somehow have 19 million in cap space. So they, depending on how team friendly the deals are, they could bring the 3 of them back.
Yeah.
They got to worry about Samoskevich, who's an RFA. That's not going to be that much money. Maybe they want to bring Nate Schmidt back on a short-term deal, because they don't have a rich farm system, and you don't when you're this good of a team, this consistently at the top of the league. But I don't know. They don't have anyone signed to anything above 10 million. Obviously, 2 contracts, exactly 10 million.
Right at 10,
so
yeah.
You could see some players taking some discounts. Tax-free state, people have been complaining about that a lot. So yeah, you could take a bit of a discount and still be making good money there.
I'll ask you this though, because people have been talking about this for a little bit, saying that Sam Bennett could potentially get a $10 million offer from a team. Do you think a team is going to fork up $10 million, or what do you think? Say he does make it to July 1st. What's that top offer going to be? Obviously, it'll be a 7-year deal, but what's the highest dollar value?
I I don't know if it goes to 10 million. Like, yeah, recency bias is a huge thing, especially with contracts. You always see every league, every American sports league, someone will have an amazing postseason and get some ridiculous contract and it doesn't live up to it. I don't know if it's the 10 million mark for Sam Bennett, but I think it's 9 to 9.5. Wouldn't be surprised if Seattle throws the bag at him because they see, oh, that forechecking presence, big body, look what he does in the big games. I don't know if he'll go to Seattle because they're such a mess, but it's such an odd spot because if he doesn't have this playoffs, I don't even think we're talking 6 million.
I mean, I think he would probably be looking at around, I think at the start of the year, when I was looking at upcoming free agents, I was thinking Sam Bennett would get around 7 to 7.5.
Okay.
And
I think that's still a little much.
Yeah, but now we're talking about a guy who had the season that he had the playoff performance he had, won a Conn Smythe. Like, I could see him getting an offer at around, like you said, 9.5 million. But I would agree. If I'm Sam Bennett and I get, say, Seattle offers me 9.5 million, I'm going to take an offer from Florida for like 8.75.
Yeah, like 50 points once, and it was this year. 20 goals 3 times across his 4 full seasons in Florida. But his 4 full seasons in Florida, 49 points, 40, 41, 51, averaging mid-70s, mid-60s games. And he's never played a full 82 since 2017, 2018. So I don't think he'll be playing more games to be able to up those points.
No.
But this could be one of those contracts that you look back on and go, oh, wow, Florida gave him 8 million and now it's actually hurting because he didn't have a great postseason last year.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think he's a good player.
Yeah.
But he's never going to be that top line guy. And I'm someone who doesn't really like to pay second line guys over $8 million. So if you're giving a second line guy close to 9, I get that the cap's going up and everything, but that's going to be an overpay for sure.
Yeah. Well, they still have to deal with Marchand too, who people think can get 8 million because he's still scoring. He had more points than Bennett this year, and he's like 8-9 years older.
Yeah, I think I kind of get the feeling that Marchand's going to stay in Florida and he's going to be around the $6 million mark.
He'll take a discount if he those two guys, if they're in Florida, it's because they're taking a discount.
So let's say 8.5 for Bennett, 6 for Marchand. They've got 19 million in cap space. That
takes away 14.5.
Yeah, so that leaves 4.5 or
5.5.
5.5 for Ekblad. Do you think Ekblad would take 5.5?
No, it is 4. It is 4.5. You're correct. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. I don't see Ekblad taking.
What was his current contract?
He was at, I think it was like 7. Yeah, 7.5.
Yeah, 7.5. Okay.
So a $3 million discount with the cap having gone up so much since he signed that deal.
Here's the thing. They would be riding the cap ceiling too.
Yeah.
And that would be very interesting because you would lose Schmidt. Samoskevich would probably get offer sheeted at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Who else goes? Magna, who's one of their other players.
Yeah, that's all you need to know about Magna. He's just a player.
You lose Noshek, who is playing penalty kill minutes for them. Sturm, like all those other depth pieces which they had for fairly cheap would be gone at that point, assuming no other trades are made.
And your backup goalie, Vanacek.
Yeah, you don't have him either. They would see. I think if they give those 2 contracts to Marchand and Bennett, they don't bring back Ekblad because you would lose all that depth, no backup goalie, and you'd be riding the cap ceiling.
Yeah, I would
right
agree.
away. Like before the season starts, you're riding the cap ceiling, and you'd be hoping that you can put someone on LTIR to bring in any help.
Or you do sign Ekblad, tell him to do more PEDs, and then his cap hit doesn't count towards the
Just say
salary.
we'll see you in April.
Yeah, exactly. Just get a year-long suspension. Your cap won't matter.
People would be pissed.
People are already pissed.
They'd be more pissed. I think more people were pissed that Florida won the cup than people in Florida were happy they won the cup.
Yeah. Oh man, I was seeing a bunch of comments. People just don't understand that he got suspended after the trade deadline.
Yeah.
And so they're thinking that the Brad Marchand deal happened because Ekblad got suspended for his PEDs. That's not the case.
Was Tkachuk on LTIR before the deadline? I think he had to be, right?
He may have been.
Because he brought in the Brad Marchand and Seth Jones at the deadline. I think Boston retained some, but there's no way they were that much under the cap ceiling.
Maybe not. I don't know. But still, like...
You can complain about that. You can, LTIR, yeah. 3 of the final 4 teams all had players on LTIR. Like, Edmonton had Kane. Dallas had Heiskanen, and that one is the most understandable because you saw the on-ice injury, and Sagan as well.
Yeah, and I've seen the reports, I don't know if you've seen them, from Frank Saravelli saying that the NHL is looking into Kane's LTIR usage.
Kane's LTIR. Yeah, they were the problem. The team that hasn't made
not the Canes. The Oilers with Evander Kane.
Oh. It's like, I don't think the Hurricanes were over.
No, just the Oilers with Evander Kane.
Shock. They give it to Canada again.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be another Luongo.
Hey,
they'll just add more dead cap to the Oilers roster next year, like the NHL did with the Canucks and Luongo a few years ago.
What I think something is going to happen on this because people have been complaining for a while, and can somehow every single team in the finals has some LTIR money. And I do think something is going to happen with it. I don't know how severe. We're not insiders at all. But I do think something needs to happen to an extent. Like, you can't fully punish. Like, if you've got someone on LTIR, that counts towards your cap. Because you would have screwed Colorado over the last 2 years when Landeskog probably couldn't even walk.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
but I think there has to be some a limit. Like, you pretty much, whoever's running the NHL, be like, hey, is so-and-so going to be back for the playoffs? Yes. Okay. You can only go this much over the LTIR. Are they coming back for the playoffs? No. Okay. Their whole contract is void for the year. Something like that. Like you can't fully punish the team, because then there would be situations where teams would be screwed. Mm-hmm. The Weber contract's still like $10 million. Carey Price is still making $11 million. Like, teams would be screwed.
Well, like those instances, like, okay, the guy's never going to play again.
Yeah.
So yeah, sure. Take the whole salary. That's fine. But you're right. If it's someone that's going to come back for the postseason or is likely to come back for the postseason, it should be a percentage of that cap hit. So if you're going to miss this amount of games, if you're projected to miss this amount of games or whatever, it's that percentage of the cap hit. If you're going to miss half the season, 50% of the cap.
Yeah, something like that. I don't think it'll happen this offseason, but I wouldn't be surprised next offseason. Like, these things take a while to get going. You need a lot of the owners to approve on the rule. And I do think it's not going to happen right away.
Yeah.
But I think something is going to happen soon. Like, Tampa Bay went to 3 straight Stanley Cups, winning 2 with LTIR overage. Florida wins 2 with LTIR overage. Obviously, Vegas,
yeah.
So that's 5 of the last 6, because I don't think Colorado used the LTIR in their cup run. I can't recall that one.
No, I can't remember either. So I'm sure they did, though.
At least 5 of the last 6.
Yeah.
That's a big percentage.
And 5 of the last 6 were no state tax?
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
That could be one of the things I saw. I was scrolling on social media. I saw people, this is just random people complaining, be like, hey, this could be the same thing with the LTIR where we're complaining now, and then a couple years later, the NHL goes, hey, maybe we should adjust something like this.
Now, I do know, I don't want to get too off the rails
Yeah.
here, but I do know that the no state income tax thing, it's not as big of an incentive as you might think. Like, it's not like, oh, I
Yeah.
make $10 million, I get to take home that $10 million, because the players are taxed based on each state they play
Mhm.
in. And so, like, you come up to Canada for a game, you come play in Vancouver, you have to play or pay the BC, and or maybe not BC, but Canadian federal tax for
Yeah.
those games.
I th- I think what I saw was it was like a 13% difference.
Yeah, so
Like
like
from
it's
the no
not
state
as
to like
big
the
as people
worst.
think.
But there is obviously still a difference. And if
For
we do
sure.
keep seeing these trends, I don't know what states are all no tax. But if it's the same thing, like the next 6 years, 5 of the 6 teams win it are no tax states, then yes, the NHL will do something about it. Because at some point, you will realize with the rising cap, this is a problem.
Yeah, yeah, that's totally fair. Let's get back on track here.
Yeah.
So Jonathan Taves, speaking of guys who haven't played in a while, LTIR usage, Jonathan Taves returning to the NHL, and he's going to be playing for his hometown team, the Winnipeg Jets. What, I guess, do you have any expectations of
No,
what he can do next year?
I don't think you can come in with any expectations for a guy who hasn't played in 2 years. It's the same thing with Landeskog. The bar is at the floor.
Mhm.
But I like this signing, not the money. I like that they brought him in because he's a veteran. He's a winner. That's what Winnipeg needs. They have a weird short window because they're losing some guys this year, but they're going to have a bunch of prospects coming up next year who can hopefully go into their middle six and then learn under Taves. But it's a good player for the team. I don't entirely like the contract because of the incentives, but I like that they brought him in. I like that they brought in a winner. He's got 3 Stanley Cups, a lot of other playoff runs for a team that's gotten out of the first round once since 2020. This is what they needed.
Yeah, I agree. I think my expectation would just be hopefully he can be as healthy as possible,
Mhm.
be like a solid third line center for them, maybe add a little bit of scoring depth. And yeah, like you said, just be a leader in that dressing room,
Yeah.
help them get over the hump that they've really struggled with over the last few years. And yeah, I mean, proven leader. He was the captain of those 3 Stanley Cup teams. Some people
Yeah.
call it Chicago Dynasty, and
Yeah.
he was the forefront of that. So yeah, I personally like the signing. It's cool to see him go back to Winnipeg, go to his hometown.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, but definitely limited expectations
Yeah.
for what
Yeah.
he'll
Well, Winnipeg
provide.
should have Braden Yeager, Brad Lampert, and Nikita Chibrikov playing NHL minutes for them this year.
Hmm.
Having someone like Jonathan Taves being a veteran leader for those 3 guys could help their development along really well and
And I
help them.
think Braden Yeager, sorry to cut you off, but I
Yeah, yeah.
think Braden Yeager is a very similar player to what Jonathan Taves was. So I
Okay.
think that's a really great fit for him to learn from.
Well, we'll see how it helps then. That could be the perfect guy for him to look up to. But yeah, you're bringing in 3 young guys who should be getting minutes. Ehlers could be gone. There could
Mhm.
be your middle six wasn't that great to begin with. I think these guys all have higher ceilings than the players currently in your middle six do, assuming Ehlers isn't back. So it could be very helpful, or it could just be another year for Winnipeg. But it's not going to hurt them.
Yeah, no, definitely not. All right, let's just quickly touch on these extensions. Fabian Zetterlund, 3 years, 4.275 million, and Ryan Donato, 4 years, $4 million. Zetterlund, obviously, with the Ottawa Senators, and Donato stays with the Chicago Blackhawks.
I like them both. Zetterlund had 0 puck luck in his short stint in Ottawa, also not playing good minutes because they had a crowded offense there. I don't know if Giroux is going to come back. Let me check something else here because there's another player. Giroux could be gone. You're going to lose Gaudette, who's not going to. David Perron's still there for one more year, but I actually really like what Ottawa's doing with this contract. He's a nice young player, 20 goal potential.
Mm-hmm.
Donato's good too. I thought he was going to get a little more, so this is good business on Chicago's side.
Yeah, I agree. I thought Donato could get somewhere closer to $5 million if he hit open market,
Yeah.
just because of the year he had. So yeah, I think 4x4 is a really good deal for Chicago. I think you still really want to bring in guys to help Connor Bedard out, but
Yeah.
having Donato on in your middle six is at $4 million is a pretty fair deal. Let's move over to Dallas. They've made a few moves here. Let's start with the Mason Marchment trade. It was pretty much a cap casualty, but he goes to Seattle for a third and fourth round pick. What do you think of the deal for Dallas and for Seattle?
It's good for Dallas. It was okay for Seattle because they're just a team of middle six guys. They don't have a top line.
Yeah.
Unless Shane Wright miraculously breaks out next year with no one really around him. Kako takes the next step. Beniers remembers how to shoot. Yeah, they're just a team of middle six guys.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and I said Mason Marchment, Chandler Stevenson, and like another big guy would make a great third line, but unfortunately, that's looking like it's going to be their top line.
Yeah, we're really seeing the two polar opposites of expansion teams these last 7 years.
Yeah. Oh man, I think Seattle's just kind of lost here. They don't really have an identity as a team. Like they're kind of bringing in just random guys. They're a team of random guys, and they're not that good.
They're gonna be. They might be the most relevant team next year.
Yeah, they very well could be.
They don't have a superstar for you to watch. They're just gonna be, oh shit, Seattle won today.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I like Vince Dunn and Brandon Montour.
Yeah.
But other than that, Shane Wright has goalie, potential.
But...
Yeah, Decord's a solid goalie. Beniers has potential as well. Kako even has potential. But yeah, I don't know. They could be in the running for Gavin McKenna next year. And hopefully that'll be the star.
I don't know if they will. There's some bad teams. They've got decent players. They just don't have good players.
They might need some Islanders lottery luck, but
yeah. Did we talk about the lottery last time?
I don't know if we did.
Let's talk about the lottery.
Okay, sure.
That was crazy.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm the Islanders though, I'm kind of pissed that it happened this year.
Yeah.
This is the worst draft that it could have happened. I mean, you're going to get a good player. But
yeah, someone who could be a decent first liner or a really good second liner. But at the same time, the Islanders could be a little worse next year. They still need a little bit of luck. I don't think they'll be a bottom 5 team. And then Utah as well, sliding up into the 4th spot. That was bigger for them than it was for the Islanders because they're probably going to be better next year. Even if they stay the same as they are this year, it's 14th, 15th best in the draft. They're not in the McKenna race as far as we can say. Probably a lot of people said the same thing about Nashville last year, so you never know until you know. But I wouldn't be surprised if Utah's a wild card team next year. A little off track, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I agree. I had them as my sleeper team to make playoffs when we were doing our segment at the deadline. So yeah, I think they've got a really good shot at making playoffs this year. And they've proven that they're not afraid to make some moves to in the offseason to improve their team. Like last year, bringing in Mikhail Sergachev. I don't think anyone saw that coming at the draft. Just randomly on day 2 of the draft, Gary Bettman announces the trade. I was like, what the hell?
It's like playing NHL.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a random trade.
All right, let's get into I guess we'll touch on the Matt Duchene Maverick Bourque extensions. Obviously, some of these deals have been made possible by the Mason Marchment trade. I think the Duchene extension came in before the trade happened, but I believe that Dallas was very cap strapped once they extended Duchesne, and now they've got a little bit of
They got
money to play with.
2.7, so they're still basically cap strapped.
Yeah,
There have been some Robertson rumors.
yeah. I saw something yesterday that said that he was pretty much off the market.
Okay.
So I don't know, because you're right. They are still cap strapped. They've still got to sign Jamie Benn, which they've been very clear they want to bring him back.
Yeah.
And then I think you really have to improve your decor here. Like,
Yeah. The decor was exposed against Edmonton.
your left side is great. Miro
Yeah.
Heiskanen, Thomas Harley, Esa Lindell. That is an unbelievable left side. And you got Bichelle. One of those guys can move over to the right. That's totally fine. But Dumba, Lyubushkin, Niels Lundqvist, Cody Ceci, I think you need to upgrade one of those guys.
Well, CC is a UFA, so he could be gone.
I would assume he's gone. I don't think they bother bringing him back.
Assuming they don't make any other moves, you can get CC back for $2 million. I don't think that's what they want to do, though. But who leaves then? Like, who's gone? Like, who's traded away?
Well, that's the thing. Like,
that's the reason why Robertson's name was out there, is because there's no move clause. Tyler Seguin's got 2 years left, but a full no move clause at 9.85. Robertson, you clear 7.75, and he's an RFA next year.
Yeah,
it's a
just
tough
that
spot.
Thins out your top six so much if you move Robertson.
It really does. But
like, I'm looking at the prospects they have here. Like, they don't really have anything as far as prospects go that can jump in and play meaningful NHL minutes next season.
I don't know what they're going to do, because all their big money contracts are either long term. Hintz, Johnson, Rantanen, they're not going anywhere, or Seguin, who's got a full no move clause. Those are your 4 biggest contracts for the forward core.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could see a Jason Robertson deal, but then what do you think they would get for him?
I think, let's say they want to improve that D-core. They're getting a second pairing D-man and a pick, at least.
And then what? You flip the pick for a
Probably.
forward? Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably what you have to do.
I saw some people, some Dallas Stars fans actually saying Jason Robertson for Filip Hronek from the Vancouver Canucks when Hronek was in. Yeah.
What's Hronek? Let's see Hronek's contract.
Hronek, I think, is $7.25.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Yeah. So you would be similar cap situation, but you'd fix the D-core.
Yeah, your D-core would be unbelievable, I think. You'd have Heiskanen, Harley, Lindell, Hronek, and then Bichelle and Lyubushkin.
That would be a good D-core. And then you can offload Dumba too.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about this, I think you try to offload those 2 contracts, Dumba and Lyubushkin. That clears up
$7 million.
$7 million. Get rid of those guys. Why do you need them?
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Or did they just sign Dumba to this deal?
No.
No? Okay.
Yeah. They're in an odd spot. That'll be a fun team to watch through the offseason.
Yeah, for sure.
Edmonton and Dallas should make a lot of moves.
Yeah, I mean, with the amount of moves that both those teams need to make, would you say that the West is kind of wide open right now?
The West has kind of always been wide open. Like, you didn't really think Edmonton was going to make it to the finals coming into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they did, and look, and it was very convincing. But yeah, I think the West is the most wide open of the 2 conferences. And it's not close.
Yeah,
like, no one looked as good as Florida. Obviously, no one really looked as good as Edmonton, other than the LA Kings for 3 games. But the West could be completely different next year.
Yeah, which I'd love to see. I'd love to see
some parity.
Yeah, just some new Stanley Cup final. Yeah, get rid of Sam Bennett and Brad Marchand. They suck.
Blow up the whole team. You
Yeah.
won 2 cups. You're good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that is what I'll look forward to most. Hopefully, some parity from the East. Nice Maverick Bork extension for Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Good
Yeah.
little young player.
Yeah, I think he's got third line potential for next season.
Yeah.
And you got him at 950K. Yeah, it's only 1 year, but yeah, I think that's a good piece of business for them. And much needed, as we see with their current cap situation. You kind of hope that he can take that jump and be a third line center for them. But
Yeah.
if he's not, it's only 1 year. It's $950,000. It's not the end of the world either if he doesn't become that legit third line center for them.
Yeah.
Let's transition from the Maverick Bork extension because he could have been an offer sheet. So let's talk about some potential offer sheets for this coming off season. This will be the last segment of our episode today. Let's start off with JJ Peterka.
He's gone.
You think he's gone? Is it going to be an offer sheet or a trade?
I think it's going to be a trade. This is the one offer sheet or RFA player I look at and go, he's 100% gone. I don't think he stays in Buffalo. The organization's a mess, top to bottom. But I think they can bang 2 brain cells together to realize they should trade him and get something back for him. And in Buffalo fashion, you trade Reinhart, you trade Eichel, you trade everyone. But yeah, such an awful organization.
Yeah.
But I think he's gone. There's already been reports of teams calling for him. I think the Flames are in on him. That would be interesting. I think Vancouver was rumored for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've also seen Marco Rossi for JJ Peterka has been a rumor out there.
Like those 2 teams going the other way.
Yeah, RFA for RFA.
Minnesota would win that. I think Peterka's better. I think he's got a bit of a higher ceiling because he's also playing in the worst run organization. So you take that into consideration, you leave that organization, there's a good chance you do better.
Mm-hmm.
And then who knows what happens to Rossi going into Buffalo.
I think Rossi's a good player. I mean, they both put up 60-point seasons this year.
Yeah, I think Rossi had mid-20 goals?
I think he might have had 25, yeah.
Yeah, mid-20.
Yeah. But yeah, I think they're both like good players. Actually, Marco Rossi's draft year, he was 24 goals. He's probably one of my favorite players in that draft. So I really like the player. I think, yeah, he's small, but he doesn't play small. So I don't know if he'd be a legit number 1 center. I think he'll be a solid second line center.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, do you think Peterka is a legit first line guy?
He very well could be. He's 20. I think he's like same age as Rossi. I think they're both 23. I think Peterka has first line potential, especially if you're throwing him on a line with Kaprizov in this hypothetical. He's going to look that much better too.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I think unless Minnesota does something like that where you're getting a Peterka-esque player, you need to keep Rossi because the offense is going to be very thin without him. Assuming you'll have $15 million of cap, you'd have to bring something in. But Kaprizov, Boldy, Eriksson Ek, and Zuccarello, those are your top 4 forwards without Rossi. That's not good.
No, but you talk about Zuccarello too. Like he's another small guy. I think if you want to win in the NHL, like it's kind of, it sounds a little bit ridiculous, but you can't really afford to have your top 6 be filled with smaller guys. That's a problem that I have with the Montreal Canadiens. And that is kind of a problem that I'm going to have with the Minnesota Wild if they do keep Marco Rossi.
They can't make it out of the first round anyways.
Well, they've got a good goaltender now. They've got a solid decor. Brock Faber's looks like a franchise defenseman.
Yeah, a superstar forward.
Yeah, like they've got the pieces. You just need to
bring in some muscle.
Well, you got to fill out the roster with some playoff performers to be able to get you over that hump. Well, I guess we just touched on Rossi. Well, do you think he'll get moved or offer sheeted?
Rossi, I think he'll get offer sheeted, but unless Minnesota is going to make a trade with him, I think they keep him because of the thin forward core.
Right. Fair. Yeah, I would agree with that. Okay. Let's see here. Matthew Knies. Yeah.
I think it's the same thing. You're going to see him get offer sheeted because of the cap going up and what happened last year. But I think this is another player that stays. Toronto's going to have a lot of cap. This is a young power forward, not the biggest guy, but he's great forechecking, great shot, broke out immensely for them this year. Toronto will lock him down long term.
What do you think that number is going to be for an offer sheet?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's 9 to 10 mil.
Really? Okay. I was in the $8.5 to $9 million range.
I think you take the risk with what you've seen this year, and with where you do have to get to a point with an offer sheet where you don't think the other team will match it too. So that's the thing. I think Toronto will easily match $8.5 million. I think they could find themselves in some problems if it's 10, maybe even 10.5, because Toronto's going to be aggressive on July 1st. They're a big market. They're an aggressive team. They're close to making that bump the same way Washington was going into 2018. It just takes, if you're going to need to put in a little more than you think to bring in Matthew Knies on an offer sheet.
I mean, now that I think about it, like, if a team like Chicago came in and said $10.5 million for Matthew Knies, I think he might sign that, and I don't know if the Leafs would be able to match that.
Yeah, and a team like Chicago has the cap to do that.
And he would be a great fit alongside Connor Bedard. You need to bring in someone for Connor Bedard.
100%. This one hasn't been talked about a lot, but I think I brought it up before the show. You were interested about it. Evan Bouchard. Could it be another situation from last year where the Oilers back themselves into a corner?
Yeah, here's the thing. So I'm not the biggest Evan Bouchard fan. Yeah. I don't think he's good enough defensively. We saw that in Game 6. He turned the puck over on their first 2 goals of the game. He was bad. And that ended up costing them a shot at the Stanley Cup in Game 6. I think if I'm Edmonton, I'm going to look to trade him. I'm going to look to package him with some combination of a cap dump or Stuart Skinner. So either Evander Kane or Stuart Skinner, basically. And I'm going to trade him for a goaltender and a more legit top 6 forward or a top 4 defenseman.
Yeah.
I think we talked about Ekblad earlier. I think if I'm the Oilers, I look at what he did in the playoffs against McDavid. Yeah, it was mostly Forsling, but Ekblad was a big piece of that lineup, and I look to move off of Bouchard, bring in a goaltender, top 6 forward, and then try to sign a guy like Aaron Ekblad, who is friends with Connor McDavid.
Yeah. You could. I actually really like that idea. I was leaning that to begin with. I don't hate Bouchard as much as you do. I'm not as low on him. The problem with him is seemingly every time he makes a mistake, it's a goal against.
Yeah.
Like, his puck luck is bad. It's ridiculous. Evan Bouchard turns it over, and it's a goal for Florida. Has he ever been bailed out when he makes a mistake?
Well, and that's part of the issue with the goaltending. They don't have the goaltending to bail guys out.
Yeah, and I think that it's funny, but I think that could hurt him a little bit. But there's also going to be some aggressive teams because he is such a great power play quarterback. Look at all the hype with Montreal and Elaine Hudson this year. Obviously, I think Hudson's younger. His defense can improve more. He might be in a better defensive situation depending on what each team does. But you could see someone look at Evan Bouchard, look at what he does on the power play, look at that shot he has, and we can surround him with better defensive players than Edmonton does and have a better goalie between the pipes. And I think Edmonton could be thinking that too and go, hey, we can bring in some solid middle 6 guys, solid defensive guys, maybe a goalie if you play with play your cards correctly, I think he should be traded, but I don't think he will be.
Yeah, I don't think he will be either. I think he's going to end up in Edmonton, probably $9 to $10 million on an 8-year deal. And, they're just going to be cap strapped for a while.
They already are.
Well, exactly. They already are. But if you want to, the problem is too, how are you going to have enough cap space to give Connor McDavid whatever he wants next offseason or this offseason for an extension?
It could be they should try to do this. It probably won't work, but you have to try and move Darnell Nurse. Mm-hmm. Chicago managed to get out of that Seth Jones contract. This is going to be a little more difficult because you're a competitive team. You made back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals. Other than Florida, there's no other team who's done that currently. So I don't know where Darnell Nurse would go. It's wild to see the full no move clauses that Edmonton is just tossing out. Gave one to Arvidsson, gave one to Hopkins, gave one to Darnell Nurse, McDavid and Draisaitl obviously, but they just hand them out.
Yeah, I don't know where you go from here for the Oilers, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Bouchard can be offer sheeted here.
Yeah.
I guess we can wrap up there. Yeah, thank you for tuning into the episode today. And next week we're going to do a little bit of a draft preview. The draft is in a week from today, so excited for that episode. I'm working on my top 50. I'm debating doing top 50 or top 100 player rankings for the draft. So I'm working on that right now. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
See you next week.